The Team Never Quit podcast is sponsored by Navy Federal Credit Union. Learn more about how you can get 25,000 points, a $250 value when you open a Navy Federal More Rewards American Express card today. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening, watching, and most importantly, subscribing. If you haven't already, make sure you're checking us out on YouTube because we're dropping new episodes there every single week, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts, we're there too. We got to jump into a Patreon question, and this one is anonymous. I don't have a name, but Patreon question today is worst nicknames you gave your buddies growing up, or maybe a worst nickname you got.
Oh, Dookie Shank.
What?
Dookie
Did
Shank.
you guys give this one, or are you guys on the receiving end?
No,
I wonder if he listens to our podcast.
he's still alive, I hope.
His name's Jason Gibbs. There's a Gibbs fan we grew up with, and he was.
Man, I don't know if you should have said his name out.
No, he needs to know.
We had another one, Spuge.
Dude,
We
one of our buddies
Spuge.
came up, man. He wanted us to call him. His name was Jason Gibbs. He wanted us to call him JG Money. Where's a Bodak?
He's like, "What'd you say, Dookie Shank?"
Might have been. I was like, no, man, you're more like a Dookie.
I don't even know where that came from, man.
Whoever dropped that moniker, it's stuck like a sticky booger, man.
Man.
to this day, if I run into him, I
Dookie
call him
You
Shank.
still call him that?
Yeah. And then another buddy of ours we grew up with tried to play football with. Where we grew up, man. Look, let me tell you something about these jokers, man. It was tough living, awesome living, and he tried to play football with big boys. And every time they'd hit him, he'd puke. And they called, so his nickname was Spuge. And it's still to this day. I mean, they're like married and has a great job. And yeah. And so it's Dookie Shank, Spuge, and
Were you guys ever on the receiving end of a bad nickname?
My nickname at the end of my time in the teams was Big Bird.
Big Bird?
Yeah, because I'm big up top and I got little bitty legs.
Nice.
really, so I had to go with Latrine and Buds because it's
Latrine?
Latrell.
No, Vector.
Well, that was the other one. Vector
'Cause
Latrine.
I was Vector too.
Yeah. So I actually put it on my helmet though. Like I put that on my helmet and owned it. If you own it, it's good. It's good. You know, it's cool shit.
Yeah. I named. We had this new guy, and I didn't know that he had Tourette's at the time. And I was sitting at the computer doing some stuff, and he was coming to introduce himself. And he's all doing his twitching around.
So which version did he have? Right.
Just the Twitch.
Just
the
Twitch. Well, it was kind of. He didn't say like he didn't like blurt out stuff. It was a Twitch, and he had like kind of a tick type deal.
There's
you know,
three.
but
There's a three.
you can hear him. You know where he's at all day long.
Oh,
you know?
he had that kind
Yeah,
of shit.
right.
Oh yeah.
We had a
So I
buddy-
asked
yeah,
him,
we got
like,
buddies
man,
like that.
what the hell? You got Tourette's or something? He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh shit, I felt bad, after that. So everybody calls him Twitch from this day, but he owned it. So
That's actually a pretty cool nickname. Though,
everything
Twitch
he's got
thing,
on
yeah.
his helmet, all of his tools and stuff, all his nickname on it.
That's a badass nickname,
Well,
actually.
yeah. Now my wife says, I'm mean for calling that. I'm like, no, you
No,
don't know,
man.
man.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
It comes out of love. That's a good one.
Well, thanks so much for asking that question. You got some answers you probably weren't expecting.
Dude, we were talking about Gargamel. We got one of our buddies looks just like Gargamel from the Smurfs.
Really?
Look just like him.
Yeah. Gargamel.
Really?
And I don't think anybody had thought about the Smurfs for ever, and I dropped that little
Well,
slam
nugget.
dunk. Yeah.
So does everybody know how nicknames works? Did I say that right? Works.
Nickname
works.
work?
Does
I don't
that
even
sound-
know.
you're
That's a
good.
weird
Is that,
phrase.
Is that
Yeah.
proper? Did I make a mistake in grammar? All right, I'll try to correct it. But the worse your nickname is, the more solid of an operator you are. If you got some cool nickname, Stan, you don't want.
Apparently, there was a pilot, a captain, that our other pilot buddies told about. His call sign was Shit Biscuit.
Oh, man.
Navy captain.
Golly.
Hey, there's some good ones.
Like them Vietnam pilots.
Yeah, right. Those
Yeah,
guys.
some cool ones.
I mean,
They got to love you a lot if you get a nickname like that.
oh,
Wow, son.
what was it? Snake shit from
No.
in Vietnam.
Oh yeah.
In
Yeah.
Vietnam, he's like, why does they call you that? Because I fly lower than snake shit. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a dude you want,
Yeah. Some
Man.
bad dudes.
right?
You guys check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/Team Never Quit. We've got exclusive access to behind the scenes content of the show. We've got some sweet merch. We've got an awesome challenge coin. You guys should definitely check that out. We've got a great guest in store today. David Eckermann is a Houston firefighter and owner of Lonestar Tactical Buildings. David has worked as a firefighter since he was 18, and 3 years ago started a company that builds training facilities for fire and police departments all over the United States. David, welcome to the show, man.
Thank y'all for having me.
And a local boy. Makes it easy.
Sure am, right down the road.
Yeah, we live next to each other, so this is going to be a good one.
Were you born and raised in this area?
So when I was as a kid, my dad worked for Walmart, so we went.
Oh, you lived in
everywhere.
Arkansas then, huh?
No, we went all around Texas. We went from. I lived in Navasota, Hempstead.
Where were you born?
I was born in Brenham.
Oh, it takes.
Then my family is from here, and we moved around with this job. You know, so from.
That's a great area.
Oh yeah. We moved to Alice, Victoria. We spent a lot of time in Jacksonville in East Texas.
I love there. The Bluebell dispensaries out there.
Oh yeah.
They bounced back amazingly.
Independence, Texas has a little shop there. You can pull in there and they have that summer sausage and cheese and that whole warehouse over on the side.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Man, that whole area is good.
I'm trying to think.
Glenn Juke on a lot of our buddies after we graduated high school.
When did you graduate high school?
I graduated in 2006 from Waller.
Oh, from Waller,
yeah. So I moved back from. We moved from Jacksonville back home, and then I guess I was in the 7th grade. Whenever we moved back, and then I graduated from here.
Oh, right on.
Because you've been at Firefighter since you were 18, yeah.
So I graduated high school, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. You know, I was going to school to be a pharmacist for some reason. I was just looking at money. You know, I didn't really had. I played football and got hurt, so I thought I was going to go in college and play football. So your plans are kind of.
You play high school ball?
I played football, basketball. You know.
Well, in Texas, you start playing when you're.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah.
It's a thing.
It is a thing.
Okay.
It is a thing,
Especially
especially in Waller.
Outside, yeah.
Especially in Waller.
This part of Texas, the heartland. It's the thing.
Yeah, I played sports. I went to Blinn for a semester. I remember calling my dad. I was like, man, this shit ain't for me, man. I just can't. College wasn't for me.
Not built for academia?
No. I bet I am now. I bet I always wanted to go back, but I was young. I had no clue what I wanted to do.
You preach to the choir to everybody.
And then, but it's funny that ever since I was a little kid, for some reason, my dad's always told me you should be a firefighter. You should be a fireman. You should do, he's always, for some reason, I was like, I think I want to go to the fire academy. And he was in from there. He's like, do whatever you want to do. I mean,
Is there history of that in your family?
No, I was the first one in my family to be a fireman. Now it seems like everybody is. My little brother, my brother-in-law.
Look what you did.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess from Blinn, I went to fire school in Teeks in College Station, which was pretty cool. I got lucky and got in because there used to be a long waiting list to get in over there. And then I remember I was still in the fire academy, and Houston was the only place I wanted to work. I wanted to work for a big city that actually got to do the job. I actually got to fight fire. You got New York, Chicago, LA, and Houston.
Those are different kind of fighters.
Oh, it's all different.
That's the best, because I go up to New York when we
fight fire.
I stay at the firehouses. That's where I'd hide out there.
Yeah.
And the stuff that y'all do down here is they say it's crazy.
Oh yeah.
And the stuff that they do up there, y'all like, that's crazy.
Right.
Because it's just
everything is upstairs.
Upstairs, right?
They pull. We have crosslays on our engines. They pull all their hose from the back. I mean, I'm talking. They got probably 1,000 feet of 2.5 that they pull up these stairs. And they do it and how they do it. They got their tactics, but they say that like how we fight fire in Houston is crazy. Like they always say we wear bunker pants on our heads, because everybody else wears a sock hood, like kind of what NASCAR drivers wear. We have a guy, he's a legend, Clifford Reed. He came up with the Reed hood, and what it is it's pretty much the bunker. He took an old welding hood, it turned it into a firefighting hood. It lets us go in deeper into the fire without burn our ears off our heads.
It's always a competition.
Well, that's how you're supposed to fight fire.
Yeah. Hit it from the
fire, right?
Right, you got to see the fire, but it lets you. I mean, if you can see some of the stuff that we go. I've been in the classes before. And got in arguments with these guys, like, is it a no-go or, would you go into this offensive versus defensive? And I'm always over here. Well, if there's a little window to get in, offensive. Like, fully involved is fully involved. There's fire coming from every crack of the building. But in my mindset is like, if there's a little hole to get in, we're going to get going right there because there might be somebody right on the other side. And they could still be alive if they're laying on the floor.
So how'd you get the fire bug? Because there's a difference. I mean, like,
I didn't have it at all.
I don't care if you're a billionaire or the poorest dude around. Everyone likes to sit around a fire at the end of the day, telling stories and whatnot, right? When them things get out of control, most everybody else everything usually hauls ass the other way.
Right.
It's a thing y'all run that way into it.
Yeah.
Because people call us crazy, like, hey, man, when a fight breaks out and they start slinging that lead and all that crazy stuff, why do you guys run? I don't know. Man, I can't even tell you.
I don't know.
When'd you get that?
I had no idea I ever wanted to do it. I went to the fire academy with the only interest there was is I know college ain't for me. And a couple of buddy of mine, their dads were firefighters, and they're always happy. They're always home. And I was looking from that, from a livelihood, in the future, like standpoint. They looked like they loved their job, so I went and tried it out. And as soon as we started burning, I was like, yeah, this is for me here. Y'all play sports.
Mm.
You know that Friday night feeling, you hear the crowd and just that feeling you get, that adrenaline rush.
Friday Night Lights is a Texas thing too.
Right. You know that adrenaline rush you
Right,
got,
yeah.
Invincible.
That's
I got that feeling. And that's what I was missing from playing sports, Got that feeling back and I was hooked, So yeah, that's I had no idea I wanted to do it. And it just, thankfully it all, it was supposed to happen, I got lucky that way.
So how'd you get into it? I mean, you just decided would you go
So I went to. You said you got in quick. Well, one of our best friends took like 3 years.
Yeah, we got most of our guys in our.
I figure like my whole story is like meant to be. Like it's crazy how everything worked out the way that it did. It's like to get into A&M's Fire Academy, there was like a 5-year waiting list, and I applied for it, and they called me the next day like, hey, we got one spot open. Can you start in 2 weeks? Well, yeah. Sure. So I got lucky in that sense. And while I was still in the fire academy, I said that Houston was the only place I wanted to work. And I saw that they were opening up a fast track class. So the fast track class is they'll hire guys that are already certified. So I was at TEACS at A&M getting certified, but I wasn't certified yet. But I went ahead and took the test and stood in the line and said I was certified and passed.
Mm.
And
nice work.
Another crazy story. The day of my interview, like I graduated TEACS, everything was good, made it through the process with Houston. The day of my interview, when I was supposed to bring all my certifications in, my certifications came in the mail that day. And it's crazy how it happened. I was out there waiting, like, man, I hope then I'm just gonna be a liar, if they don't come in. But yeah, came in.
That's
got the
good
job.
Stuff from above, right? Every now, like that's how you know you're following your right path.
That's what from that point, I was like, I know I'm on the right path. Because,
yeah.
I mean, it's crazy, to the day. And I went into Houston, got lost because, I'm from out here. I thought 1960 and 290 was Houston,
Right? It's a big city. I remember growing up too, man. We didn't venture down that far. And it's not even.
Right. Now that I'm older, it's like I know all the roads and everything. I know it backwards and forwards. But back then, man, I was
the same way.
Intimidating.
I didn't even like driving. No. Didn't even want to head down there.
Yeah.
I didn't think I could get back.
Yeah. I just always remember west. Either I'm end up in Katy or where I'm supposed to be. So, but yeah, joined. So went through that process. I think I graduated A&M in 2007, and I moved right into Houston's Academy from back to back. So I got right from one to the other. So I was still in good shape, which is another culture shock. Whenever I got into
how old are you doing this?
18.
Yeah,
right. I turned 19 that December when I was still in the academy. But coming from TEACS and then coming to Houston's Academy, first day you're there, they're like, forget every fucking thing you were ever taught before. We're going to do it. This is how we do it, And I remember the first when the light bulb kicked on, I was like, yeah, we're really doing it how they want us to do it. Like when you're in the fire academy, they teach you to put your gear on. You put your mask on last. You throw your mask on, throw your hood over it. Well, in Houston with the reed hood, the first thing you put on is your mask and your reed hood. So you're doing it. You do everything ass backwards. So I remember being all screwed up. I was confident going in because I'm like, I've been doing this for months. Well, now we're doing everything backwards. So relearning.
And that's what we were taught. Yeah. The mask goes back on first so you can see what you're doing. Right. Underwater. When we were underwater. Yeah, underwater. Yeah.
This is like getting dressed in the back of the pumper of the truck, going down the road. And that's what we do. We get in there and they drive around. They get some chauffeurs from around the academy that drove like crazy. They have that sucker up on 3 wheels. We're in the back, trying to get dressed, training. It was a different academy versus how they normally did it. It was kind of like a pilot deal with our class, which is pretty cool because we just learned our job. We didn't learn all the.
Man, that was some of the best training we have. They would throw us up in the back of a deuce and a half, black it out, and then they would drive us down these dirt roads trying to do IVs.
Yeah. That's how when I was in paramedic school, that's how
remember
we
that?
learned how to do
Yeah,
IVs,
and then up in the hill, and then trying to get dressed and all that. Because if you can get dressed in that, then you can definitely get dressed going down.
One of our instructors had us start on ourselves. That way,
same thing.
If we screw up,
looked like a bloodletting out in the back, right? I mean, track marks everywhere. Like, man, IV training was it was cool. Now when you
especially when you go get blood and that nurse can't get it.
Right, I know. It's like keep going.
She thinks you're a heroin
right?
or something.
It's like, how do you know all this? It's like, lady, you can't even believe what they put us through for paramedic training.
Yeah, the academy was pretty tough though. I was definitely the hardest. Yeah? I mean, that was definitely the hardest thing I've ever done. You know, but like I said, it was a pilot program, so I saw how the other classes were being conducted, and ours was totally opposite. You know, our officers, Jerry Turner and Tim Dunn, they're still in. They brought in well-known officers from outside, you know, in the streets, and they came in and taught us the way instead of trying to teach us the. You know,
supposed to be like
way.
that. If you soften up the training in the academy, you'll produce soft operators.
Yep, and that's what's happening these days, unfortunately. You know,
because the streets don't get easy or soft;
man.
they get hard every day. They evolve. Yeah. If you back up what goes out there to take care of it, then you're just putting them in harm's way.
Oh yeah, that's what you're right. It seems like these days they're lowering the standards.
Are they lowering the standards?
Oh yeah.
Why?
Big time. They just can't. Well, with Houston, I mean, nobody wants to work there anymore. It's a sad deal because used to, if you made it to Houston, you were good. Like a lot of guys started at smaller departments and they built up to get, you know, to the big city job. And now we're losing them. I think we lost like 600 guys just this year.
That's how you reverse it.
Why?
Just from the morale. A lot of it is we haven't had pay raise, and I couldn't.
That's why you make it hard. You make it really, really hard because they don't care about the pay.
I never really gave a damn about
that. That's what I'm talking about.
And so when firefighters I had a discussion with officers because I teach officers at SAM, and they tell me that nobody comes to their departments, or they won't come to the departments. Number one, standards. Number two, they don't get paid enough. And then my question back to them is like, who becomes a firefighter and a police officer for money?
That's my exact thing, man.
And you know what the answer is? The younger generation.
Yes, I guess. I mean, I'm part of that younger generation, I guess.
Well, that's comes from the standards. So if you when you make it hard, we never cared about the pay. It was the respect you got from going through the hard stuff.
Right.
So that stuff didn't matter. But when you lower the standards to anybody who can get into it, well, then you have to pay to compensate for the difference. Because that's what standards like. Why did he get a job? Because he works harder. It was like, well, that's not fair.
Right.
Well, then we'll pay you more. And then,
I mean, I'm that guy, man. People look at me like I'm crazy because I'm the guy that's like, all y'all guys bitching about a pay raise and y'all can't even do your damn job. You know, y'all suck at your job and you want a pay raise. I mean, but I really give a damn what
maybe that's why they don't get pay raises, because they suck at their job.
It's not that, and I'm not saying that they all suck at their job. That's not what I'm getting at. It's just that. To me, if you're going to be a fireman, the first thing they told us at Teeks, like whenever it was just an idea, I mean, you're never going to be rich in this job, you know?
Oh yeah. You don't do it for the money. That's it. Yeah.
You'll have a great life, you know, live between your means, and, you know, it'll be awesome. But you got those guys that want the bigger and better things, which I know we need a raise, obviously. Cost of living is one thing. We hadn't even gotten that, you know? I'm
talking about the young ones coming in.
But they shouldn't. I didn't even know how much Houston paid whenever. And there's a lot of guys like that. A lot of the older guys that have been in, that they could probably say the same thing. I had no idea.
Yeah.
You know, I think when my first check was like $800 for 2 weeks, and I was like,
so what is awesome. That? It used to be you joined for the life.
That's what it was for me.
Right? Because in the SEALs, like you joined for the life.
You're putting yourself in harm's way, and you're probably gonna get killed.
Right.
But have a badass time doing it. Like training hard, like doing all that crazy stuff. Yeah. That was a thing for us.
That's what I tell guys, man. I've been there 14 years now.
And then now they want to get paid to have to go do that when we wanted to go do it just to do it.
Is
that the difference?
I think that's what it is. I mean, I've been there 14 years, and I've had the worst day a fireman can ever have, and it's still the best job in the world. Like I feel like I really haven't been working 14 years.
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that fun?
It's
That's
awesome.
The way we were too.
Blessed,
I was like, how was work? I was like, man, every day was different. And like we literally got to go in, get paid to work out, hang out,
hang with your buddies,
and go
do
help
crazy
people.
shit,
Go help people.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reward in that.
Oh yeah, and that's another
itself.
thing too is that I see with like the attitudes of, I hate to say younger guys because there's some really good young guys, but there's a group that they get butthurt when they're on the ambulance, or they get butthurt and they get an attitude when they gotta go pick grandma up off the floor, 3 a.m. And that is what drives me up the wall. Like I be wanting to whoop their ass in the front yard after that because it's just that's what we're there for.
Oh man!
So where is that mentality driven home?
That
Or
my mentality,
where is that mentality not driven out? So is there a lack of delivering expectation in the academy, and there's been a loss of translation there? Or because my point is if we have generations like this that are coming in, because I'm sure the older generation said that about us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Either way, at what point do we take ownership of the attitude and mentality of the younger generation underneath us instead of complaining about it? So if you have cadets or rookie firefighters that are all they do is bitch and complain, is that the captain, the chief, lieutenant's fault to say, sit you down and say, hey, look, I hear you loud and clear, and if that is your problem, you need to get the fuck on.
So you're right. How it's always been when I came up, that mentality is we had leadership, man. We are lacking leadership and I'm not saying, like I said, we have some good guys, and I only hang around with those guys. So like I know the good guys, but I also know the bad leadership too. The weak leaders produce weak followers. And for example, like when I was a rookie, man, we didn't give. You know how many times I've heard we don't give a fuck what your opinion is. You know, just be quiet, do your job. That's what it is. Like that bitch and complain. What are we bitching and complaining about? You know, like you can't. We had no room to talk. You know, because we just wanted to be here. We wanted to be like those. We wanted to be like those guys. And these days, I think it is like from the academy. It's a softer, kinder, gentler department, and it all starts with leadership. And I think once you give that one little crack, the little light that they can, you know, have a bad attitude. Well, number one, you shouldn't have a bad attitude from the get-go because it isn't that type of job. Like you have to have the mentality of wanting to.
Shouldn't have an attitude at all.
Right. Like I always think it's not, and this isn't original. I was told treat everybody like it's your mom or your dad or your family member. Well, if that was my grandma on the floor, number one, like think about what she's thinking about. Like she's helpless. Like what else is she gonna do? That's what we're here for, you know.
You don't think she'll probably never forget the time somebody came.
Right.
Everyone remembers when someone helped them.
Right. Just be good to people.
Yeah.
You know, that's all you got to do. You know, and that's what we're here. I mean, people call 911. They call the fire department to help to fix any situation.
Sure. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I mean, from
anything you can imagine,
broken pipes to whatever, and fix it.
Hell, sometimes just to have company. Like in the
you know what I'm talking
about? Like in the cold months when we were riding the wagon, man, it was during our rotations. It was like, man, they just call because they're lonely.
Right. We had this older lady. Her husband passed away. I mean, and she was lonely.
Yeah.
And she would call us.
Think about that.
She would complain about, you know, she would make it like a complaint, but I knew, you know.
That's how she. Yeah, that's the best part.
You know what I mean? And I'd sit there for an hour
on reserve,
and just talk with her. You know. Help her whatever we needed.
You know that because that made her day, man.
But you know, a lot of that too is I saw the older guys. I was fortunate, man. I've been fortunate to work under some great people, just great people, and even better firemen. You know, and that's what they did. They just took care of. They were just good to people. You know, took care of them, and they gave a shit. You know, one of my buddies, Robert Beebe, who passed in the Southwest End fire. We'd make that call, and if we couldn't fix the problem that day, he wouldn't tell nobody, but he would go back the next day. He'd go to the hardware store and fix whatever needed to be fixed, you know.
Yeah.
He was that type of dude.
I mean, you can always split it. You can go in like, oh, I got to deal with this person's problem. Like, oh, I'm here to help you deal with your problem.
What else were we going to do? Go sit on the couch and watch TV?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can you choose that.
Right. It's a mindset.
Mindset, yeah.
My wife says it's a switch. Like when I go to work, it's a switch on. When I come back, you know, it's a different mindset of how you think about your day. You know, You're not thinking about
that's
yourself
why we
today.
step into that.
Right.
And the reason we have teammates is to remind us of it, because when it gets hard, you can't keep going into life is its own thing.
Right.
It keeps going whether you die or not. Life is life. That's why they call it that. So when you kind of jump in and out of it, man, it's like how you get good at it or you don't. And then there's times when you just come in to literally, how do you want to go? I came here to help you, and with your problem, or like, oh man, I got to deal with your problem, because that ought to be on the questionnaire. But like, are you going to help somebody and you're upset if you got to deal with their problem, or
the thing is you raise your right hand and you say,
I understand that, but as they go through it.
We couldn't put the show out every single week if it wasn't for our sponsors, so let's take a second to thank our friends over at Truebill. Most of us don't realize how many subscription services we were actually paying for each month. And especially during quarantine, when we were bored out of our minds, I'm sure there's a lot of us, myself included, who was just signing up for all kind of stuff, whether it was streaming video services or random apps. 80% of people have subscriptions that they have completely forgotten about, which is insane, because that means you're paying for stuff you shouldn't be. And if you're looking to just get control of your finances, then you should definitely check out Truebill. They are the smartest way to manage your finances. You can actually review your recurring charges in one place. You can even cancel subscriptions directly through the app that you're not even aware that you're probably paying for. It helps you manage your monthly budget, your expenses, evaluate your savings goals. It'll even help you automate some of those savings goals. And you're going to get push notifications every time you're getting close to going over your budget or when your cash is running low. It is an incredible app for just getting a grip on your finances, especially the new year. We're trying to spend money right. That's the way to do it. Another incredible feature is that they work with many of the nation's top providers to negotiate and lower your bills. So if you're using AT&T, T-Mobile, Spectrum, and many others, they're going to help you actually make sure you're paying the lowest price on your bill. It's incredible. I want you guys to feel good about your finances. Most people think that they're spending about $80 a month on subscriptions, but in all reality, they actually spend closer to $200 a month, which is just insane. You guys should definitely check out this app. The average person saves $720 a year with Truebill. You guys can get started today at truebill.com/TNQ. Take control of your finances once and for all and start saving at truebill.com/TNQ. That's truebill.com/TNQ.
What we read and what we see when we signed up for SEAL training, it was nothing like that.
That's true. Yeah.
So there's got to be that switch when people are like, oh, now, I'm talking about, like, there's the people who are like the heart of training.
About it, like what Morgan said about the hard training.
Yeah.
I mean, besides being married, like my wedding day, graduating the fire academy was the best feeling I've had, because that shit was hard, man. Like
Doug,
it wasn't easy.
What's up?
So like I just wanted to, I've always left it in my mind. Like they beat the hell out of us to get here, and and there was a lot of people that wanted to be in my position.
Sure. I guess that's how you know. Like if you go through something and when you get your trophy or your certificate, if it's just like, oh, cool. You didn't. That's not a thing.
Well, a lot of it has to do with pride. Like,
that hard work, the pride's inside the body.
Right.
I mean, overt pride is one thing, but when the hardening of your body goes the same way when I graduate SEAL thing. When they like, hey, good job, you graduated. You don't even know what to do.
That's just the beginning, right?
Right? You don't even know what to do. You can't even believe there's a middle ground between being happy and sad.
Right.
And I think taking that away from people. Well, when we're young and we're going through when you can take that, that's why you're young.
Right.
Youth is a tool.
That's what it's supposed to be.
It's supposed to be like that. And everyone grows up in a different kind of household. Bless you. Was it 53% or something like that? Maybe the number. He's the number guy, but Americans don't even leave their hometown.
Really?
Yeah, they just kind of grew up in one area.
I think I heard that on somebody mentioned that the other day.
So when you leave out of your home and then you volunteered to go into a house with different guys, right? And not only that, you put your life on the line, and the training that you want to make it as hard as the situation that they could possibly get in out there. Right. And if you do that, then it builds a bond. It's like growing up in a hard household. Those brothers, those sisters are tight.
Yeah. We are, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Like if you know who they are in school, high school and junior high, you know who the hard kids are,
right?
Because they grow up in some stuff. They get respect,
right?
And the guys who the tough guys who actually help the weaker, like protect the weak instead of bullying them or taking from them, man, that's respect like you can't imagine. The thing about the paychecks, man, being one of those respect that comes with it, and where you go and people see you, especially in your own neighborhood.
Right. I just like. You're right, man. I mean, like I said, I had no idea how much money I was going to make. I never forget this feeling. First time I made a fire, I'm driving home, and I'm on the Beltway, and I'm like, holy shit, this is what I do. Like it was just this awesome euphoric feeling of like, nobody else does this, you know? We just did some badass shit and I get to do this for the rest of my life if I want to.
You get paid for it.
You get paid for it. You know what I mean? It's
hard to say it's one of the coolest jobs because you're dealing with fire, but all my buddies that are firefighters, like, man, you guys got to, they love it.
Yeah.
They love it.
That's just, it's almost, I mean, it's like I hate to say it's like a lifestyle, but it's a mentality of like,
Oh, both.
it's a different way you live, like, and how you think about things, you know?
Sure.
We have 2 homes. I mean, I have my house where my family is, and I have my second family that I spend more time with than my first family. You know?
So speaking of the end fire, like that obviously was probably one of the hardest days of your life, but prior to that, you've had some other.
Yeah. So I remember there's a previous, relationship, but I mean, my I guess you could call him my ex-father-in-law was going through some hard times, and I always respected the hell out of this guy because he was burned when he was young, and but he always made it happen. I mean, he'd be out there, you've seen somebody that's burned, their hands are drawn up or whatever, and to see a dude swing a framing hammer, it just, and he was successful at everything that he did. Always had a good attitude. Well, he started drinking, and things got real bad. I remember I went to work. We're at a it's called like a post-mortem meeting about a fire we made. And I got a call from Montgomery County, and it was the paramedic on the ambulance. And he called me and told me what was happening at my house. My father-in-law committed suicide at my house. And I mean, it's just, that was the beginning. I mean, I remember going, I just couldn't. And my fiance at the time was there. She saw it all. And I remember. He
did it in front of her?
He didn't do it in front of her. He was sitting on the porch, and she heard the gunshot. I mean, and she looked over, and it was, he was right there. I remember she called me before she called 911, and I couldn't do nothing. What can you do? And I remember my buddy took me home, and we're always used to like the mentality that I was talking about. Whenever we always pull up and people are looking for us to help the situation. But whenever you're pulling up and you're used to fixing the situation, there's nothing you can do. You just got chaos going on at your house. Your home, that's whenever home became like home, but that wasn't home anymore. You got all that shit going on there. I knew it would never be the same. But we got through that, I said we aren't together anymore. That I believe that because of that and everything else that happened, later, about 9 months later, I think we were put on this planet for around that time to help us get through that, to move on, for the rest of our lives. But moving from that, about 9 months later is whenever the fire happened. So we were, I didn't have a house to go back to because I wasn't expecting her to go back there, just to remember all the time. So we're just living in an apartment. I just felt like something was taken from me. I had this, path of how my life was going to go. I bought that house when I was like 20 years old, fixed it all up, was proud of it, and then boom, that happened. So it kind of shook things up. And then, and I was there for her during that time. I wasn't really thinking about myself. I was, making sure everybody else in the family, their family was good, which is kind of a bad thing to do, looking back. You got, when you focus on one thing, but you're not focusing on yourself. And all what's going on is just building and building and building, and, for an explosion that's going to happen later on, in life. But like I said, after that, 9 months later is when the Southwest End fire happened. It was around, it's crazy how everything, when I talked about, like when I joined the fire academy, I can kind of back up. It's weird because it all kind of goes together, man. Like when I was in the academy, the chiefs, like you never talk to chiefs, and we had the whole, the rank structure or whatever. Well, I remember me and my buddy after Houston's Academy one day, this chief come up and talked to us, introduced himself, super nice guy, He said, I'm Curtis Siemens from, I'm at District 68 on the A shift, good luck to you guys. Hope everything's good. No other chief would ever come up and talk to us like that, I thought that was cool. I didn't know where District 68 was. I didn't know where any of this stuff was, And just coincidence, my first day, I show up, he ends up being my chief, Just, it's crazy how that worked out. So after that suicide happened, I've always been a real faithful guy. That was the first time in my life I questioned it. And that was the first time that I actually felt weight, like that weight of not having faith, walking around. And he got me back, got me back. I didn't even say nothing to him. He could just see it. And we talked, and I remember that weight lifting. And he got me back on track, And it's almost like he was preparing me for what was coming. Obviously we had no idea what was going to happen May 31st. But if I would have been in that same state I was with zero faith at all, and then that happened, and who's to know how things would have turned out. But yeah, he's a big part of my life, Chief Siemens. And he was the chief of that day whenever he was running that fire that day. And I remember it was just a normal day, man. I think the box dropped around noon, 12:05 or whatever. And it was a normal busy day. We backed in the station, the box dropped. And the weird thing was, so the first day I've ever been late.
What does that mean, the box dropped?
A box is a fire call. We call it a box alarm or whatever.
Okay.
First day I've ever been late in my whole career was that day. And as a firefighter, there's only one place you want to ride, and that's first line. First line is the one who's on the nozzle. Like you're up front, getting after it. Well, I was late, and Cabernard, just messing with me. He put my buddy Joel, he was riding plugs. He's put him on first line and me on plugs. Hey man, wake up on time. You can be on the nozzle. That type of situation. It was funny it's weird how that worked out. First time I was ever late, I'm on plugs instead of first line. And 12:05, the box drops. Right before the box dropped, BB, who drove our engine, was actually driving the ladder truck that day. Well, the ladder truck had to go down and get this. It's called some stupid award. It was like for the busiest station in the city. They give you an award every year. And so BB asked Joel to switch with him. So Joel's a firefighter. BB normally drives the engine. He's driving the truck today because he was studying for the captain's test. He wanted to switch with him. That's why. So they swapped. Joel jumped on the truck, and BB got on first line with the engine. As soon as the truck left, about 10 minutes later, the box dropped. And let's see. I think it came in like 12:05, and it was right behind our station, like walking distance. I think we got there in like 30 seconds.
What was it?
It came in as a hotel on fire. It was the Southwest End. We've been there a million times before. It was a super low budget, normal Southwest Houston hotel.
2-story, 1-story, 4-story.
Well, it came in as a hotel. So the hotel is like, it was like I guess you would call it like a.
Doors on the outside or in?
It was like an old school, like Ramada, like the courtyard style hotel.
Yeah.
So it was no interior hallways or anything like that. But when we got there, the hotel wasn't on fire. It was just the restaurant that was attached to the office of the hotel. Weird thing was how things work out, man. The guy who was driving the engine that day was on debit day. And if BB would have been driving, we would have took a left out of the station, a quick right, we're there. Well, Joseph, he took a right out of the station. He knew where it was, but he didn't want to, if you hit that feeder road and it's behind us, then we're screwed. We got to go all the way back around. So he went the long way around and went down Bel Air to the feeder road. And I remember sitting at the intersection. It's just a normal box, man. You don't really, you after you do it for a long time, those, like, you're pumped up about it, but you don't have that, it wasn't like our first rodeo, pretty much. Until I remember getting up to the intersection, I looked, and Chief Siemens, District 68, was right at the intersection with us. And I looked right, and it was the craziest, most thick black smoke I've ever seen in my life. I'm talking, you couldn't see the freeway. Like it was that bad all the way. I mean, you couldn't see, cars were stopped on the freeway, on 59, on the feeder road.
This was coming out of a restaurant?
Out of the restaurant, yeah. I mean, to this day, I've never seen smoke.
What burns like that? Besides tires.
I mean, so usually when you have a lot of pressurized smoke like that, it's from a super hot ass fire. Like, so think about like whenever you have a diesel truck and you step on that gas, the harder you step on it, the more fuel, the more heat, the more black exhaust you're gonna come out of it. Kind of the same concept. Like high pressurized smoke is heat driven, smoke. The heat kind of acts like a pump pushing it out. But that was a weird thing about this one is like the smoke. Whenever we went inside, the smoke didn't really match what I was expecting it to. It didn't look. I was expecting it to be super hot. That wasn't what it was. But I remember us pulling up, and I'm like, oh shit, man! Like this is. I'm looking over at Robert at BB, and this dude's just he's a bad son of a bitch. I mean, he's done it. He's just good at everything, And he looked at me. He's like, "Hey, man, you ready to go?" I remember Cap Renard turned around. So Renard and BB were like best friends. Like they were two peas in a pod. They went to school together. I mean, through the fire academy together. Been working at 51s their whole career. Just promoted up, So they kind of knew what each other was thinking. That's how it always was. I remember Cap Renard turned around. He was like, "Hey, man, we got this shit. Y'all pull a 2.5, meet me at the door." And I remember when we jumped off, people were still coming out of the restaurant. It was around lunchtime, so it blew my mind. I'm like, damn, like how long has this thing been on fire for people to still be running? Like,
is it a big restaurant?
No, it was probably, I think the front was maybe 30 foot wide, like 30 by.
Like the size of what?
Like an IHOP attached to another structure, right? So it wasn't standalone. It was attached.
Oh.
But I remember people running out of I'm like, damn, we got to get in there because people still might be in there. I mean, it's lunchtime, people still running out. I remember we made entry. Like I said, I was expecting that the way that smoke was looking coming out, like just pushing. I was expecting to be hot as hell, like crawling on our bellies, try to find the fire. I mean, that's normally what you do. It wasn't hot at all. First thing we did, like when we walked in, Cameron had me poke a hole in the ceiling to make sure there was no fire over our heads. And I remember poking the hole, and it was a lath and plaster ceiling. When I pulled the ceiling down, it all came down a big old like 3x5 section or whatever. Couldn't see shit, but I just remember hearing the weight just boom. Sheetrock just breaks up, And there was no fire overhead. Kept
You said
pushing.
it wasn't hot in the building?
I think
but the smoke bellowing out of there suggested that it was.
Suggested it was, right. I have my theories. I'll get to them, like the reason why everything looked the way it did. So like I said, we have a thermal imager. It's called a tick. We take a tick reading at the door. And I think it was 180 degrees at the ceiling, which that's the hottest point of the, of anything on fire, heat rises. 180 degrees really ain't shit, I was expecting, feel the ant bites and my ears burning off my head with this one. So we kept pushing. We saw the orange glow. Matt saw it in his tick, and I'm riding plugs. So BB's on the nozzle. I'm riding plugs, humping hose, pushing hose behind him. And I remember Matt had his thermal up, and I could see where the fire was. I could see what he was seeing, and BB started hitting it. Knocked it out. And from when he started hitting the fire, everything got better as far like visibility wise. So with the 2.5, like with the 1 3/4 line is what we normally pull. You can flow water for maybe 6 or 7 minutes, flowing 200 GPMs, out of the nozzle. So with the 2.5, you can double that. So you run out of raw water really pretty quick. So we ran out of water. Chauffeur said, "Hey, we got a 1/4 tank." So we backed out. And as soon as we backed out, like I'm talking like we walked out, probably 30 seconds at the most. And chief said, "Hey man, y'all got we got a positive water supply to work with now from a hydrant." We went back in, and we're going in, still knocking fire down. And at this point, I could see Matt or Cabernet from me to you. You know, it went from zero visibility, not being able to see nothing, so I could see, you know, face to face. And we're trying to go around and make it into the kitchen, and we're slipping around because you know how those kitchens are in restaurants, they're all greasy and shit. So we're sliding around, and Matt told me to go back to get to hump some more hose, to pull some more hose in the building. And he told me to stay on a wall. He said, "Hey man, just make sure you stay on a wall." Got it, you know. So I'm coming out, staying on the wall, following the hose out, which I could see. And I remember meeting Engine 82 coming in. If you ask any of my buddies that we work with, if there's a task to be done, I'm a delegating son of a gun. Like, hey, let's get this thing. Y'all help me, because 2.5 is a son of a bitch to pull. It's heavy, you know, try to pull around. I was like, "Hey man," the captain said, "Hey, chief told me to pull a backup line to come in to, you know, assist with fire attack." I was like, "Man, we got that shit knocked out. Help me pull this hose." So Engine 82's crew backed out, and to help me pull the hose. You know, I remember we turned around, and I remember Matt Cameron yelling back. He's like, "Hey man, are you good?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good." And I turned around and kind of looked at him. "Yeah, man, I'm good." I took another step, and then boom, everything just fell down. You know, it just happened like that.
What, the ceiling collapsed?
The ceiling collapsed. The whole ceiling collapsed, and it was so close from crushing me that it flipped the brim of the back of my helmet up. Like it just, you know, hit the back of my helmet where the ceiling came down. And I remember it just kind of catapulted me and Engine 82's crew out the front, you know. And the weird thing was, because there was so much residual smoke, like I was talking about, you couldn't see the facade of the roof on the building anyway. So whoever's standing outside didn't really know what was going on until I had to go up to the chief and like, the fucking roof collapsed, you know, because he was busy doing other things. You know,
it collapsed on the inside, not the out.
On the inside, right? Because the front wall was still standing up. It just kind of, you know, fell flat down. Man. So with the smoke and everything, they couldn't see anything. And so when it fell down, I remember getting up, and my first reaction was just like, "Fuck, man!" Like the shit that I heard, you know, it wasn't good. You know, not from the radio, just from on the other side of that wall. You know, I'm standing from here a foot away, and we're just clawing, trying to get back, because, you know, the stuff that we're hearing, you know, the stuff that still haunts me in my dreams today, you know.
I want to take a second to introduce one of our latest podcast sponsors. And you guys know we love hearing remarkable stories of people who just don't quit. But unfortunately, even some of the strongest people give up when it comes to getting quality sleep. And you guys know we're all trying to be our best, but sometimes we forget that we've got to fuel our body and our brain. And really, you can't do it much better than with only a great night of sleep. And that's where Chili Sleep comes in. They're the pioneers of the original temperature regulating mattress pad. Chili Sleep was scientifically engineered to mimic the natural temperature change your body demands to fall into a deep sleep. Now, I just got mine. Like, I just got my mattress pad, and I told Morgan about it. Morgan was like, "Dude, I've had mine for quite a while now." I guess he's owned one for several years. And he said it's just a game changer when it comes to getting the best night's sleep you can get. So if you didn't know, temperature-controlled sleep is vital for restoring testosterone levels, repairing muscle after a hard day's work, and even improving cognitive function. So you're always going to start your days feeling sharp and alert. So whether you're a hot or cold sleeper, and no matter what size your bed, Chili Sleep has a solution for you. You're going to fall asleep faster. You're going to wake up without the grogginess that comes from sleeping on a regular mattress. And for an extra layer of comfort, they even offer the Chili Blanket, the only weighted blanket that can also be paired with a sleep system for the ultimate sweat-free sleep. I sleep stupid hot. Like, I have the AC cranked way down low, and that really can crank the electricity bill up. So being able to not have to worry about that anymore, I can leave the AC in the house at a reasonable temperature, and instead I use my Chili Sleep pad to cool off at night to get that good night's sleep. That's just a game changer. Adversity doesn't care how you slept the night before, but Chili Sleep does. They've worked with frontline military heroes and first responders for years and are passionate about giving the gift of sleep to those that gave so much for our country. You can learn more about their dedicated military, healthcare, and first responders program at chillisleep.com/heroes. But right now, you guys, I want you guys to head over to chillisleep.com/TNQ for Chilli Sleep's best deal, available exclusively to you guys, our listeners, for just a limited time. That's Chilli, CHILI.com/TNQ, and get your special offer. Make sure to check them out, guys, and get a great night's sleep.
We heard, obviously we just beating on it and it wasn't budging. We're taking chainsaws to it. The guys, later on, they were taking saws to it, trying to get through it. And I knew it wasn't good from that point. Just from looking at the situation, I was like, holy shit. Like, this is bad, And at the time, I only thought it was Engine 51 that was inside. And but what didn't make sense was those sounds I was hearing didn't make sense with where I knew my guys were at the time. We were further into the building, and I'm hearing these like right at the door. Like I hear something on the right, and I hear somebody screaming on the left. Well, this, unfortunately, the right side stopped. And then with the left, whoever's on the left-hand side was just screaming bloody murder, And I'm glad he did, because that's what it was. Ended up being Captain Dowling. He was right between that wall and where the roof fell down on top of his legs. And I remember all this. Like, it sounds like this happened like within 10 minutes, but it was like 30 seconds, But like, it just happened so fast. Everything's just going on around you. And I remember turning around, and that's whenever the chief at the front, and I'll say his name because I respect the shit out of him, Chief Burgess, he activated the RIT team. So the RIT team is the Rapid Intervention Team, is just for down to get down firefighters. And I say this because the RIT team, at that time, we worked with some good dudes in our area, like dudes that they got your back. They're the guys you want to see if you're in a jam. And remember Captain McAfee and his crew, TJ and I forget the other guy who was with them. These dudes are some working son of bitches, man. They don't stop until the job is done. And he came up, and I told him, I was like, hey, I don't know. I heard something over here, but this one, it's like I heard some stuff going on the right side, but somebody screaming on the left. That's where they are, And they went straight to it, man, and found, they couldn't get to Captain Dowling at the time just because there was small, obviously everything was fucking collapsed, but they handled it, and they were able to get Captain Dowling on to air. He never went out without air or whatever. But after that exchange, me and another guy from 82s, like I said, this happened in like 45 seconds, man. After that exchange, we grabbed the nozzle, and there was some fire burning. It was almost like the size of a campfire, burning from where that noise. There was no other fire around, but it was burning from where that noise was coming from. And we pulled out I remember there was a window unit in the wall. We knocked that window unit out, went to the window, went in there, started knocking that fire down, and the screaming stopped, So obviously that was burning him. That fire was right on top of his legs, and that was what was, caused his injuries, they were able to get him on air, and they, matter of fact, it was the first time, I think, since the whole RIT, in the fire service came to be RIT, it was the first time that a successful RIT operation was done to rescue a firefighter that, and they survived, It's pretty cool. So after that, putting it out, I'd already ran out of air, and I was pretty fucked up because I'm breathing all that smoke in or whatever. The problem is whenever we found out it was Captain Dowling, we didn't know Engine 68 was inside. So when I went and told the chief, they're like, hey, they told me to come to the command post because we had an accountability issue. Like, we don't know who's where, what's what, And it really wasn't making sense because, like I said earlier, the stuff that I heard didn't line up with what was going on. Like, what I heard didn't line up with, I knew we were further into the building. We come to find out it was Captain Dowling and engine 68. And that's when my heart sunk. You know, at the time, whenever I said we heard that screaming, I thought that was Matt. And then when we find out it was Captain Dowling, it was like, oh shit, like this is bad. Like I had no idea that they were inside. And they were able to get Captain Dowling out. And after learning about that, and then, but we weren't able to get to. We also got to BB, Kevin's story. He was a bad son of a bitch. I mean, he's just salty as hell. One of those firemen that you want to work for. You know, this fire was so big. He came from Eights. Eights is, you know, that big fire station that's downtown. They came from all the way from there, the southwest side, and they came, and his crew was the one who found BB. The one thing that kind of says a lot about BB is that when the roof fell down, it didn't crush him. You know, the others, you know, they didn't have a chance. You know, but he crawled through that shit and got himself out of the building. And whenever they found him up on the upside of the roof that had collapsed on the outside. And there was witnesses that said that they saw a fireman crawling out. You know, he had his glove over his mask. And he would crawl up and he would slide back down. He would crawl up, but he didn't quit until his number was punched, man. And says a lot about him, you know, and the reason why, you know, I looked up to him so much. But yeah, the Engine 68's crew, they were able to get Captain Dowling out.
So how many guys were in the house?
At the time, there was 5.
Plus the captain?
No, so there was...
How many on 68?
4.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 3 on 68. Chauffeurs always stay outside.
And the other one, and captain, right?
And it was me, BB, and Captain Bernard on Engine 51.
So you got, I mean, when that thing came down, it came down the breach. That's what blew you all the rest of y'all out of there.
Yeah, it came down hard. I've never experienced anything like that, you know. It shook us hard. Like, I'm talking dazed the hell out of us.
Yeah. That was a similar situation with us. Everybody who knew who was on the mountain was on the bird.
Right.
And vice versa. So when in that major chaos when something's going down, and this is the best part about our training and making it hard, is when it really gets hard, you can get tunnel vision. You can focus just on one spot, and we tend to do that. That's why the senior operators are better.
Right.
You know, because they back it up.
Right.
We talk about it when we jump out of an airplane. First time you jump out of there, you're just going to see this, right? But as you go, it's going to open up, and you kind of see more things.
That's one thing that from that situation, that seeing the big picture, like you could look at it as a curse, but more, as my career, you know, moved forward, it was a blessing. I see
no curse. We don't get battle week. Yeah, man. You don't get battle weekend. You get battle hardened.
That's it. But I had no idea about any of that mindset, or I didn't know the process, you know.
Sure. Isn't that the best part? If you did know, would you do it?
But you know that feeling of
I thought about that too.
I would get this feeling of like I didn't know what that was. You know, everything was slowing down. I didn't know how to kind of like I could tell you what was going to happen. Like I know what we need to do. I knew how the fire was going to, because after that day, I just dove into, I want to know even more than what I did before. I just dove into my job. Like I want to know everything.
Sure.
You know, the science behind everything. But
we train for those fights, and then we get into them, and then the harder you train, the harder the fight actually molds that training down. It's like tempering steel. Right. So we train, and then when you go out there and you get into your fighting it, if that beats you hard enough to where it kills everything around you, then you don't think that you come out of your perspective is completely different. Yep. You see things that no one else will, because the only way you can see those is if you've been tested that hard.
Right. And that's one thing with us is like looking back, is like we never really trained a lot. We trained, but we'd make 3 fires in a day. You know, we got a lot of on the job training. Obviously, we did some training, but the reason I love working there is because we always were fighting fire. There was always something to do. And the reason why I liked working in that area is because, you know, some neighborhoods, some houses, they just have certain type of construction. They have a bunch of shotgun shacks, or they have a bunch of whatever. We have everything: houses, apartments, high rise. You know, that's why I wanted to work there. You know, that's why I still.
And most people think they call y'all firemen just because you deal with like a real fire.
Right.
It's actually could be a fire in the house. Someone's no, like I'm talking about couples upset. The fire between the relationship. Like they call y'all in for multiple types of fires.
Do everything, man.
You know what I'm talking about?
Everything.
Yeah. People fired up somewhere. Yeah.
Medical.
Sure.
Psychologists. Whatever. You know?
Right?
Seriously.
I mean, like we were talking about the police, the firefighters. This day and age, man, you got to know religion. You got to know freaking not on the rule. Yeah, everything, languages, multiple stuff.
How did the roof fall in if you guys only been on scene for 5
So-
minutes and there wasn't any? You said there was no fire up top.
So in the report, and that's one thing I'm going to speak freely here, like because the report that was so after that whole deal went down, you know, after that we just had interview after interview after interview after interview, and I was kind of the only one that was there that was still, you know, the other first in companies they want to ask what happened from the first in companies. Well, I was the only one that was alive from the first in companies, you know. So I told him everything, you know, that what I saw, what I felt, what I smelt, you know, everything, you know. They kind of took what they wanted to hear and kind of put it into a report, you know. So the reason why that smoke looked like it did, where the fire was in the building, it was in an electrical closet, and there was the big commercial return unit for the AC was right there. So they had these commercial vents going across the front because, you know, when you're building something, you want those vents pointed towards the windows or exits or whatever, just to keep the building cool. Well, what ended up happening, there was a fire, and then that smoke filled up that space, and it got into that AC return in those big, you know, those big squirrel cages. It was just pushing that shit out, you know, like crazy.
Back in.
So where the fire was, the building was, you know, truss construction.
Mm-hmm.
So in anything building construction, if one truss fails, they all fail. They all have to work in one. They're great for using for anything else, but when shit's on fire, if one of them falls, the whole building will fall. Well, there's a truss right above the electrical closet that fell, that you know, burned through, and the whole building fell from there. But as soon as they cut the electricity off of the building, like whenever they cut the power, the smoke went from blowing across 59 to vertical, you know. So that was, and there was reports that the fire that had been burning for about 3 hours before we were called.
How's that possible?
How's that possible?
Especially right behind the firehouse.
Right. So there was reports of like either patrons or employees, which they were, you know, illegal immigrants. They don't ever want to.
Said 3 hours, and you said when y'all pulled up, there's still people running out of it.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't make sense, you know. But they said man,
that's not thin.
That smell of smoke. They said they were smelling smoke for like up to 3 hours. Usually, if you're in a business and you have people coming into your restaurant, you smell smoke. There's a big difference from food smoke to actual.
But it wasn't
structure.
that big. That's my point. I was like bellowing like that, and then 3 hours later, you got dudes rolling out of there.
And that's what it's hard for me to wrap my head around, because when the box dropped, usually you see that whenever like your second, third, fourth end to a fire, where it takes a little while to get there. So the fire doubles in every 30 seconds. Well, shit, we were there in 30 seconds. So what the hell?
That's my point. You said the thing was burning for 3 hours.
That's what.
Why was there somebody still in there after 3 hours?
So like, what happened? Like, did you just like?
It must be some good food. I ain't leaving. I mean, that doesn't even.
It's wild, man. I know that's one of the things that's hard for me to wrap my head around. Like, what the hell, you know? But yeah, I mean, I think one thing I took from that pride that I talked about earlier is so because of that accountability issue on that day, Chief had me go like sit by the engine. Like, I know where you are, you know. Well, because I was sitting back there, I wanted to help, man. But I mean, I knew, number one, as Chief seen, as he told me to do something, there's a reason for it. I didn't question nothing. But it's crazy that I was put like I was put where I was back away from the situation, right? And I could see everything that was going on in front of me. And I never, how hard them guys worked to get our guys out that day. I mean, you can't put it to words. I mean, I'm honored. And my pride that I have today stems from that. Seeing them guys give everything, you know. And a lot of people don't have that perspective. But I got to sit back and I watched it all. I mean, we had a secondary collapse. We had guys that almost died from that. You know, they were forced into early retirement. I remember there's a guy, damn it, forget his damn name. But he was a pipeman on the rescue truck. And I remember we'd make calls with him, and he'd always, like after an extrication of a vehicle on the freeway or whatever, he'd show us different techniques, you know, just try to make us better. I remember this wall fell on his legs, and he told them paramedics, he's like, if you put me on this fucking stretcher, you're going to end up end up right in the hospital with me, you know. But he kept going. He didn't stop, you know. I think both of his legs were just crushed, and he was just still digging, you know. That's what I got to see.
Man, no scenario. There's times when they happen.
Yeah.
Throughout time, like when you get into something, there's stuff you can't explain.
Right.
Like, how did this happen? I don't even know, man. It was so crazy. You know what I'm talking about? So
you can't drive yourself crazy.
That's what I was going to say, man. You can't beat yourself up thinking about how that happened because, man, you'll never. I mean, no one will ever know.
Right. I think the aftermath of all that was that we talked about leadership earlier. Things could have gone a lot better if we would have had that, you know, that leadership. Obviously, it was the biggest in line of duty death in HFD history. You know, so I mean, I don't want to armchair quarterback how they went about everything, but one thing that still to this day eats me alive. So they lied to us and said that that BB had been taken out and Cameron had been, you know, taken to the hospital. They wanted to get us away from the scene. They lied to us and said Cameron was still in there. Obviously, this is a recovery point. It's been over an hour. And so we listened to our leadership, you know. Chief tells you to, not Chief Siemens, but the fucking fire chief at the time, hey, y'all need to get back to 51s and just stand by for orders from there. And everybody shook up, you know. So we're just kind of like ducks in a row, you know.
So what'd you guys do after all that went back down? I mean, were you offline for a while? Or did you go back into the shop?
Oh no, we were. I think we were off for like 2 weeks and back on it.
Back on, right?
Yeah, but what I was getting at is that what still haunts me today is that they fucking lied to us. If your captain dies in line of duty, you're carrying him out. And they took that away from us, you know, because they lied, you know. I know that affects a lot of us, you know, still to this day, you know. But moving forward, yeah, I mean, I think we're off, like, we had all, you know, all the funerals and all that, man. That was crazy. And I think we were back on it 2 weeks later, you know. I remember coming back and I was shaking like a leaf, you know, not knowing what to expect.
Confidence thing, right?
Well, yeah, because our two leaders were gone.
That's what it was for me too.
It was 100% confidence.
Stuff, yeah.
I'm glad you said that. That's what it was.
That's right. So I couldn't figure out what it was, man. But you go back in, and it's just like when we grew up around here getting in fights. You know, people ask like, "Why do you always go back?" I'm like, "Man, we were raised that way."
Yeah.
And when you go back in, it's kind of an intent. It's a confidence thing. It's like you got to build. It's also the fight.
Right.
Like, man, you get your ass in a good one. You know what I'm talking about?
You always want to come back.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Right. But if it's funny. I remember that. It took me a while. I had to go back and get into another one before it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
That was the thing. It was confidence.
Yeah.
I lost all my confidence. And being where we work, it's kind of crazy that we're talking now.
All right, guys, this year, spring is going to hit a little different, and that's because we're all finally starting to get back outside, get to see our friends again. So no matter where your adventure takes you, bring the comfort and style of Mack Weldon along for the ride. Trust me, guys, your closet is going to thank you. You probably don't want to hear me talking about underwear, But dude, their boxer briefs are freaking amazing. They are incredibly soft. They're the most comfortable boxers that I've ever worn. But I also got a pair of their activewear shorts. I've got a pair of their joggers. It's all incredibly comfortable. So whether it's their hoodies, polos, tees, or active shorts, everything in their collection mixes and matches seamlessly to fit in with any other trendy products you might already have. I'm telling you guys, those boxer briefs, those shorts that I got, I was rocking them all weekend because they're comfortable. They allow that flexibility. I got some big old legs, man. And they let me get around comfortably, and they're really nice. And you can't go wrong with the fact that they look incredible. Whether you're working out, going to work, or on a date, Mack Weldon is for everyday life. They've got a wide range of customized fabrics that can keep up with you no matter what your day looks like. Now, they've also got an incredible loyalty program. They call it Weldon Blue. It's totally free. Level 1 gets you free shipping for life. Once you reach level 2 by spending $200, you're going to get 20% off every order for the next year. So you guys are already spending cash on clothes, whether it's for those shorts, those polos, those joggers, those boxers, whatever it may be, even the socks. Why wouldn't you want to get 20% off? Mack Weldon wants you to be comfortable, so if you don't like your first pair of underwear, you can keep them, and they'll still refund you, no questions asked. So I promise you, dudes, I know it's weird to hear me talking about underwear, but you should definitely check them out. They are comfortable, and hey, if you don't like them, you're going to get to keep them. Come on. For 20% off your first order, visit mackweldon.com/TNQP. Make sure to enter that promo code TNQP. That's mackweldon.com/TNQP. Promo code TNQP. Get that 20% off. Mack Weldon, reinventing men's basics.
But it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again. And these guys went out like some fucking heroes, man. I mean, if I ever go out, that's how I want to do it, you know? And, it's just a lot of things that I saw, like there were, and I understand it. But one thing that I never had was like, people talk about like survivor's guilt or whatever. It was a weird thing, man, because I didn't have survivor's guilt, but I felt guilty for not feeling guilty.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I think that's the definition of survivor's guilt.
Is it? Okay.
I know I had the same thing. Like, man, I don't feel bad about.
I didn't.
What everyone told me, I was different. I was like, man, you know, you kind of get bummed out. In the warrior sense of it, you're like, them dudes put out so hard, they got to go back.
Right.
My ass still down there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, like reversing
your faith that I talked about earlier.
Right?
That's the reason why.
Yeah,
like,
man. When you talk about losing your faith, it's like you should.
Like this isn't where we want to be. I mean, I want to, you know,
of course,
in
that's
game.
the whole point. I mean, so down here.
So that's just how I've always thought about it, man. Like they went out doing what they love to do, and now
how awesome is that?
No
one ever gets to go like that.
They made it. You know,
no one ever gets to go like that.
No. And
that's how you know you're putting out in the right way.
And I never second guessed anything. I mean, if you ask me now, like that same building was, I wouldn't change anything we did.
Sure.
Shit happens,
Anybody
man.
who second guesses the whole thing, they shouldn't have been in it. That's how you can tell, like, then they shouldn't have been in there in the first place.
Right.
Because the other guys will be like, I did exactly what I was trained to do. We all know that shifts in every situation. I mean, you can play the same scenario out 50 times. You're going to have 50 different results.
Right.
With us, because we're going to get something you can't even compete against.
Well, the thing about it is, like, we run into burning buildings, man.
Right. My point with that. Exactly.
Whenever it's your time, it's your time, man.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no other way to go about it.
Man, the enemy y'all fight, man, you can't talk to it.
It's Mother Nature, man.
And it eats and breathes and feeds and it tears, it consumes everything around it. You can't have a conversation when you got to hit it with water, right?
Yeah, that's the only thing we can do. You know, I just feel as long as you do everything you're supposed to do, and that's from the beginning. You know, guys have issues like, you know, with calls or whatever else. I've always told our younger guys, I'm like, if you do everything you were supposed to do and then some, you can come out after every call, you can come back and you can go straight to sleep. It'll never haunt you.
It's funny when people lose track of that. I'm like, man, what, you know, we go, each day is each day, right? You're looking for that one that you think that's, man, if you make it back at the end of the day, especially with our firefighters, man, that's a different story altogether, because everybody's always running the opposite direction you guys are.
Right. I hate the what if, you know, what if I would have done this?
My mother would always say, if my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle. I'm like, man, you can what if everything to death, man. That's not how we play it.
Right.
It's like, we just go.
That's what you're supposed to do. I mean,
man, we just go.
Because if you pussyfoot around it, it's just going to get worse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, as far as like whatever's in front of you, you know.
That's usually the people that come at you like that because they never been in it.
Right.
Like, well, what if I'm like, okay, no disrespect, but have you ever had to go through something like that? Because there's some of those questions people ask when you've gone through it. You're like, I hadn't even thought about that, because it wasn't even an option in there.
Right. And And we talked about earlier, like the whole culture of the fire service is changing, and like training is a big thing, right? And I don't. This is the first time I ever talked about this publicly, too. So not a lot of people know that I've had this experience, and but I hear guys talking, like for instance, like we're having a leadership class, right? You got to pay $100 to go to this class, and this guy's going to teach you about leadership. Okay, well, I'm that guy. Is like, well, why are you teaching leadership? Like, what makes you that guy? What have you done? But usually those type of dudes are the ones that are sitting back there armchair quarterbacking, but they ain't never done shit in their career. And that's not me being negative. That's just how it's the culture's kind of going to. And that's not everybody. Like, there's some great dudes out there.
Well, there's a difference between learning to be a leader and then having to have applied it and becoming a leader. That's the same way we go to school. Everyone reads the same thing in the book, and then you go out and everyone applies it differently. If you don't ever apply it, then you don't have any idea what it means.
Right.
Because we interpret things differently until you get out there and there's those stages. That's why age is rank. And that's why I have rank.
Right. You think anybody can be a leader?
No.
I don't either. That's why.
No.
It's just something that's
well, it depends on what now. It depends on how far down. Look, even in the poorest
ability to possibly become a leader, whether or not they exercise that
or a
ability.
good leader. I guess you always be
a leader in what? Because even in the poorest neighborhoods, there's a really rich person who lives like king. I mean, we put those standards on ourselves. Mm-hmm. So I mean, yes, everyone can become a leader and grow from that. Whether or not you do it and what levels you do it at are completely up to you.
Right.
We all come in just a blobber and block of nothing mess. And life is the millstone that we go through to sharpen us. Mm-hmm. However long you want to stay on that millstone's up to you. Because even when the blade's on there and there's sparks flying from it and it's sharp and it's screaming, we don't even pay attention to that.
Right.
Probably like, man, what are you doing to me? I'm sharpening you.
Right.
And you can't appreciate it till you come off of it, how sharp you are.
Right.
Most people want them to stay on the mill that long. They do everything they can to avoid it. That's why people like you have to exist, so they can call somebody. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made it.
Right.
They wouldn't have made it. There are differences down here.
Right.
David, there's one crazy thing in the fire service that people don't know, which is firefighter suicides are a higher rate of cause of death for you guys than line of duty deaths. And I know that when we talked together, a few weeks back about you being on the show, we talked about how important that was to you.
Yeah.
What kind of encouragement do you have and advice for these firefighters?
It's pretty sad, man, that I can count on two hands of how many people I know that I've worked with that have committed suicide. A lot of it has to do with, line of duty death. A lot of it has to do with trouble at home, stuff like that. What I wanted to get to from the story and the transition from like how it affected my life negatively, man. Like I'm talking, became a recluse. Like didn't want to be around nobody, and that's the reason why I wanted to tell these guys, like I learned what perspective was. And you can think about the same thing from all different angles, And I think that if you stay in that negative and you have people around you that are nothing but fucking negative, nothing gets better, And it took me a long time, and I didn't have those negative people around me, but that's where I was standing at, because this happened before, and now this happened, and now this happened. It's like feeling fucking sorry for myself, And I was I don't know what it was, man. It's just one day, that mixed with not being able to sleep. I mean, that was a huge thing. Like just you're walking around like a crazy person because you're like, you want to go to sleep, but you're so freaking like strung out because every time you go to sleep, this replays again, and you can't really sleep through it, And I didn't know that I had post-traumatic stress disorder. I didn't know I could get that, So I went a long time before I got help, And I remember the day that I went to Dr. Buser, who was our department psych doc, who was awesome, man. He saved my life. And he told me, he's like, hey, man, like, you do all these tests. He's like, man, you have some severe PTSD. I'm like, well, I didn't think firemen could have that, You know, just because we hold guys like you up here. We don't know, like, we know y'all have gone through some crazy shit, you know, veterans, you know. But, like, I just had this one thing, you know, I didn't think that like it was possible for me to have that. But whenever he told me that, I felt that a weight lifted of like, okay, I'm not crazy. You know, I have this problem, so how do we get better from here, you know? And that's what I did. I think the issue in the fire department is these guys are just lost, and there's nobody's there to number one, see what the issue is and see that they're going down this road before it gets too late. And I think that is the issue. It's just that the whole post-traumatic stress disorder, and I to this day, I just, it's not that I'm ashamed to say it, but I'm not the guy, I'm not the spokesperson for that, you know.
This episode of the podcast brought to you guys by HelloFresh. They offer fresh, pre-measured ingredients and mouth-watering recipes delivered right to your door, which means going to the grocery store every week, trying to figure out what your grocery list is, trying to figure out what you're going to cook for dinner is a thing of the past. That's because they offer amazing recipes. They've got 25 plus recipes each week you can choose from, whether it's vegetarian meals, craft burgers, even extra special gourmet options. There's something for everyone to enjoy. All of the recipes have been designed by professional chefs and nutritionists to make sure you're going to have a delicious, simple meal that you can cook at home. The thing I've really noticed about the experience is that I have stopped going out to eat as much. I've not had to stress out about what to get at the grocery store. And that's because they're cutting out that stressful meal planning and those grocery store trips so we can get back to cooking and enjoying a good, delicious meal. And you can get it on the table in about 30 minutes or less. And it really is that simple. We have a blast doing this at our house. We live in an RV right now, and so space is limited. So being able to get these prepackaged ingredients that we can use to make an amazing meal has really been a game changer for us. Over 4 in 5 HelloFresh customers say that HelloFresh helps them lead a healthier lifestyle. And that's because they got some amazing recipes that are low calorie, carb smart, even those vegetarian options that are going to be available each week. This week on the menu, I'm looking forward to that pork carnito tacos. All right, we're trying to just spruce up Taco Tuesday. I'm very excited about that meal on the meal plan. I want you guys to give them a try too. So go over to HelloFresh.com/TNQP12. Use our code TNQP12. You're going to get 12 free meals, including free shipping. So make sure to do it now, because next week you want to get on that Taco Tuesday, those pork carnitas, or whatever it may be, then you're going to want to check this out. One more time, that's HelloFresh.com/TNQP12. Use our code TNQP12. You're going to get 12 free meals. Shipping's for free. I want you guys to check this out. Save some money, avoid all that stress, and get back to eating right. That is why HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit. Make sure to check them out.
But I know that I have it, you know, after learning about it. And I think if other guys would actually learn about it, they would see, hey man, there's ways to fix this. You know, like, cause I remember I'd be driving down the road and just get raging ass mad for no reason. And I get mad at myself for like, what the fuck is wrong with you, man? Like, why are you feeling this way? And it's just all those different emotions. You don't understand it, you know? But after learning about it, okay, I got this problem. If you don't know you have a problem, you can't fix the problem. You know, that's with anything. You know, if you don't know that there's an issue, then what needs to be fixed. And whenever I found that out, you know, is whenever things started getting way better. You know, but I mean, I had to do it on my own. You know, and it wasn't overnight. And I still have I still have those bad dreams now, and everything else is mainly what I want to talk. I want these guys to just talk, man. Like, don't keep that shit inside. And what I did for up to a year after the fire, we're at the firehouse, nobody talked about it, you know. But that was the place we went. That was normal. That was that normal, you know. That was at home. That I couldn't sleep anywhere else but the firehouse. I could sleep like a baby there, but at home, couldn't. And but I really think it would make a huge impact if we would just talk. Like, firemen sit around the table just like this all day long. We shoot the shit, talk about everything, but we don't talk about that. Like, what do you feel? How are you feeling today, man? Like, you know, you could tell your brother, there's something up with you, man. You got to ask them. Like, and I think a lot of the problem is that people don't ask. Well, they know that something's going on at home or whatever else. Like, you have to put yourself, like, you have to intervene. Like, I know you don't, like, a lot of people don't want to, you know, to to barge in on somebody else's relationship or whatever situation it is, but you have to.
Really? Because we do it to each other all the time before something like that happens.
Right.
You ever notice that?
I'm talking about just
always
in general
in our business.
too. Like
we're always in our business.
Right.
Always. Except for that one time. And then you get to the point to where when you get into a bad situation, they send you into a doc who hasn't been through any of he's been through training, but not what you've been through to understand the fact like, well, I didn't really have a problem with what I went through. And then when he's diagnosed, you can't understand that because he would have had a problem going through it.
Right.
So then they put it into your head that you're supposed to have one. And those voices going back and forth, or you yelling at yourself, you ain't supposed to have a problem with this.
Right.
But then if your leadership and those people do tell you, and then they string you out on them drugs,
oh yeah, that's one
you
thing
don't know
I'll
which way's up.
Yeah. So one thing,
because in reality, some of us are trained to go in that. Before you came in, if you got in a firefight and you thought about a fire just like that, would you want to go into it?
As in, I didn't. What do you mean? Like when I was young? What are you saying?
Yeah, I mean, it starts when we were young. I'm talking about like when you were young, before we got in, you were trained to be a firefighter. If you'd have heard about that fire that you went into,
shit, yeah.
like younger kids looking at you, and they hear your story, they're like, that dude's the only one made it out of that fire. And like all those young cadets running around, and they see you, they're like, that's the one dude who made it out. And then when that actually, think about that. Like you've been through a gauntlet, no one else made it through. Mm-hmm. So when you teach that down, it's like this is what you're capable of, not what you're not capable
I get
of.
what you're saying, yeah. For sure, yeah.
It's just two ways of looking at it.
Oh, yeah.
Someone can always tell you, like, oh, hey, going through something like that, I don't know. But look what everyone...
no, but that question that I had only lasted for 2 weeks. And then as soon as we came back to work, boom, back on the horse again, And that's just how...
It's tough, especially if you get your body whipped, your mind. Those two things work, they got to catch up with each other. So if you get beat down real hard, yeah, we're going to take that hit. That's what that is.
Right.
It's that post-trauma, man. It's kind of like...
And I had no idea about PTSD or whatever that was. I mean, I've heard it, from soldiers and stuff, and because like I would have.
There's a very dramatic difference in a lot of sky between post-traumatic stress and post-traumatic stress disorder, and you need to know that.
Right.
Because if they told you have post-traumatic stress disorder, you would not be sitting here in front of us right now in this room.
Right.
You most certainly have post-traumatic stress where you're reliving the event over and over again. The fact that you're having nightmares is a good thing.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you weren't, you wouldn't be sleeping. Sleeping means, having nightmares means you're sleeping. You're down in, what was it, 3 and dreaming. That's a good thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're resting. Okay? The daydreams and the memories, that's
is there a transition? Like
well, the more you think about it during the day and play it out in your head, like any scenario, if you get in an argument, like when somebody pisses you off and you kind of go over it and you play it out and you play it out. So if you run into it again, you're ready for it. If you don't do that, if you ignore it, if you cover it with drugs or something like that, when you go to bed, they'll show up.
Right. It went from not sleeping, like feeling like crazy, to being able to sleep and then have the dreams or whatever. But it would still go, in my head all day long.
I mean,
that's what teammates do. Freaking just chatty.
It'll never go away.
Oh yeah, I just
but
know
there
how
has
to
to come a point in time where you have to make the conscious decision and the subconscious decision and say, look, you know what? I did everything I could. They did everything they could, and I have to put this to bed. Mm-hmm. Because if you continue to pull that thread, you're going to unwind.
Right.
Where we are right now with how the science works and the modalities in place to address post-traumatic stress, there's no fix. This is an emotional and cognitive instability that lives and breathes only in you, your specific issue. And in research, we speak in generalities, okay? You may be very different than every single person that was on that fire. Okay, the ones that survived, okay? Their issues could be similar. They could be parallel with yours, or they could be 180 out. Some of them may not even have a problem whatsoever because they didn't know the individuals that died like you did. The list goes on and on.
Age, environment, where you came up, huh?
What we know now is that you will have to make a conscious effort. However that is who knows, that I'm at peace with this now. And then it'll inevitably have to turn into a remembrance of when you talk about what happens, it makes you happy.
Yeah. Right. That's why you tell it like that to motivate.
That's kind of weird that's how that transition happened for me.
This isn't what I took. This is what you can take.
When you start telling these younger firefighters, like when Marcus talks about the lives of Danny and Murph and Axe and everybody on the mountain, there's a smile on his face.
Yeah. I'm like, this is what you can take.
It's kind of like all you want to talk about.
Can you imagine what we've been through, man? You can take
a negative
this
into a positive.
Let me tell you
that
about
way,
my
when
friends.
you talk about it and you're colleagues that passed in the fire, they remember how amazing they were. Not the tragedy itself and how horrible it was, but how amazing that event was.
Right.
And then it makes it better for you, makes it for everybody around you. And then again, it's like,
and that's what that transition did for me, like over time, you know.
The best thing you can do is tell people I don't have post-traumatic stress.
Right.
Quit telling people you have it.
Well,
Quit telling yourself you have it.
I don't. I'm just talking about the whole. That's one thing you ask my wife is like, I don't like don't tell them shit. Don't say nothing like that, you know, because I don't want to use that. I think I've heard a lot of people use that, and it's totally wrong of me. You know, when you try to compare other people's situations, which is wrong, you know?
Yeah, I don't ever.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, but that's whenever I was going through it, I would try. I mean, obviously I wasn't in my right mind, you know? And
well, that's the relations. You got to, that's how we cope.
Trying to relate their problem to mine. Whenever that light bulb kicked on, and that perspective, actually having perspective at all, you know, because I had, you know, looking from it from a glass half empty or glass half full type mentality is what I had to kind of go through.
Yeah, man, bro, when you get man, there's a stress. Like my leg hurt, man, I got a child, people died, man. Yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah.
Because you're dealing with all those emotions at once. Truthfully. And so as you're going through it, when your body's healing and when you start talking about it, first, when your body's healing, you don't talk about it. That's why the dreams come in, because it reminds you what happened. So when you do start talking about it and you pass that down, that's why you go through the fire.
Right.
Like gold is forged in fire.
Right.
And as you go through life, you step back into the forge.
Right.
And you come back out, you fire people up. You come back in, you get your ass back in the forge.
I have a question about that. Like when I say I have dreams, it's one thing every time, you know. It's the sounds is what I hear, you know. But it's not the whole situation. I was just wondering, is there something significant with that, or?
Oh, that's something that you encoded. That was something that was the most traumatic event of that day. That's
what stuck in me.
Probably because you couldn't see.
Well, no, I mean I could.
Because how dark everything was.
It was on the outside of the building.
It was
But for me and inside, all your senses are get heightened so much. Like when you guys, I would imagine when you master them, all you can, you know how when it's so dark, because this happens to us when we're underwater, you can hear yourself breathe. Like you can feel your whole pattern and stuff like that. And the other senses get heightened up.
I think that's that one thing that is like burned into my brain is hearing that, you know, and we couldn't do anything. There's really nothing we could do, you know. That's the one thing that
I got that too.
You know,
smell.
People don't realize there's nothing worse than sound.
The smell, like you said, I wasn't going to talk about that.
Yeah, the burn. Mine was if you could put like if you went to go watch a movie in a theater and you could roll smell through there, it'd be real. Because with me, it was so loud, but my ears were blowing out, man. But I could still hear things. But the smell,
that's
like the fire when it's real hot, like real hot. I know you can relate to this, man. When your mouth dries out, you know, water won't get it wet. Yeah. And you're just kind of sitting there, man, and that blood and burning that, all that stuff kind of like
snot.
Yeah, dude, right?
You just got to keep going.
Right. That's terrible, man. Yeah, you just kind of like, well, that's when you go to that.
It's the worst thing about throwing up in a mask.
Man, dude.
But yeah, that smell, man, that's one thing too.
Friggin' smell.
It's like burning, you know, flesh.
Yeah, it's tough.
I stuck my head inside of a Bradley with not a bunch, but individuals that had been burned real bad. And I threw up all over them. I felt really bad about it, but I did. And I mean, when it hit me, I mean,
can't stop.
You'll never forget it.
No,
it wasn't that take a smell. Oh, that smells awful. It was as soon as it hit my sinus cavities, it hit the go button.
That's what gets me.
And I threw up.
You know that sensation you get?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When everything goes, it's like maybe that was death. That's what death, you know, the death smell.
And I think those problems that I've had. Now, my wife says the only time they ever, like, because I don't really notice them anymore, but she can notice it. And she'll wake me up in the middle of the night. She knows I'm having some type of dream or whatever. And it's always whenever, like, a stressful situation's going on, you know, at home. But normally, I was going to ask you, too, is, so I was having all those dreams, and it was just, my mind, it was just constant all day long. Like, that's all you think about. You know, we're sitting here talking, but in my mind, this is what's, you know, running through. And I started doing research, and I wasn't going to take any, you know, medicines because, you know, I didn't see anything was good with anything good coming from that. So I tried CBD oil, and researched a company, and called me crazy. Maybe it is mental, like a mental thing, but I started taking that, And after about 3 days or 4 days of taking it, I didn't even notice that I stopped. My mind stopped, just racing all day long. All the dreams stopped. And I can actually, it's weird saying this because I was on the lawnmower one time, and whenever you're doing something, sitting on the tractor or whatever else, your mind is thinking about stuff.
Do the best thinking on the
But I
tractor.
used to think about that, not about just the bad about it, just think about that day, nothing negative. But I was sitting on the lawnmower and I was like, fuck, I hadn't thought about that in a long time. Like I actually had to think about like, shit. So I guess the CBD oil is actually working because that's the only really change I've made, or maybe, I don't know.
There could be the complexities of putting that together are just astronomical.
It's all the way
I mean,
thought about
it could be one thing, it could be another, it could be a combination of CBD oil, it could be a combination of CBD oil, the fact that you've spoken about it, thought about it. When you address that in your mind, you say that's the only thing you're thinking about. Well, that may be the only thing you're thinking about. It's not the only thing you're doing.
Right. Oh,
right?
yeah.
So that when you, with your mind, our mind's not built to multitask. And if you're thinking about that day, but you're trying to be a firefighter, or you're trying to be an instructor, you're multitasking, your brain's getting exhausted. On top of all the bullshit we got to deal with every single day, right? Okay.
Yeah,
so
it was.
what may inevitably have happened is that the CBD oil was kind of a calming and led you to relax a little bit, and then you were and gave you the ability to focus in on that particular day enough to where I've pushed this sled as far as I'm going to. I'm good now.
Right.
And you just pushed it to the back burner.
I've always wondered
it'll
that.
come back up again. Could very well possibly come back.
Oh, it does. Comes and goes, but I know how
as
to deal with it. Yeah.
heavy as an emotion? Maybe not.
Yeah.
I mean, you may get caught in the moment and just like I don't know if you're drinking now, like get in the bottom of that bottle and
That's one thing too. I was gonna.
don't do that.
Think about it like this. So when you watch a movie or something like that and you play it over and over in your head, you watch it, you kind of get used to that moment, right? To where you can either looking at it so much that you're like, okay, I didn't do anything wrong. And it's teaching yourself to get used to the fact that happened to you.
Right.
Not to get over it, so you can always regurgitate it. Like we can regurgitate our favorite songs and everything like that. So that's your mind's way of coping with it. Plays it over and over again till you see in your head. And I mean, I was just talking about it and playing over it in my head again to where I mean, like, good job.
Yeah.
I mean, you did your job.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got a song you've listened to so much you just burn it out. You're like, I don't ever want to hear it again.
What I did was
I can tell you all about it, but it doesn't affect me like it used
right.
to.
Yeah, yeah. What I did, man, like after learning about, hey man, this is the issue. I picked up a guitar. I've always wanted to learn how to play guitar. I learned how to play that sucker in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But when I say that's all I did, that's all I did. But that was that thing that I needed. That was my thing to free my mind.
Yeah, yeah.
Was doing that.
I talked to a buddy of mine too. He's like, normally when your mind gets into that rotation of that bad thing, start doing something that you want to learn to do and like it, and you replace it. You plug it in.
That's
to
what
where
Dr. Buser told me to do.
Yeah. That works.
And it was just coincidence that I'd already started doing that.
Yeah.
And
it's funny how the body works, right? The mind.
Yeah,
just
and it's funny also is if you don't do, like, it's almost like to me, I got to do that at least 30 minutes a day. That kind of winds me down, and we're good. But
that's a great point. Think about that. So normally when you're just sitting around trying to bum out and you get something in your head you can't get out of, up to a point where you're just laying on the couch trying to be lazy and you're like, oh, okay, I'll get up and go run.
Yeah.
Just something it's your mind going, just do something to break this up, right? That's true. Yeah.
So what do you have going on right now? What's good with me? Where has life taken you since?
Man, life has been awesome. After getting better, I had a station Christmas party 2 years ago, and like I said, single, being cool by myself. I wasn't even looking, and I see this blonde sitting out by the fire, who's now my wife.
I was going to say blondes are dangerous.
Man, she came out of nowhere, man.
They do that.
I've never seen her before. I went up and talked to her. She talked funny. She's from Louisiana. And,
I got a Cajun too.
Yeah.
Hybrid,
straight,
man.
yeah.
Texas, Louisiana deal.
And because I never even had the urge to talk to anybody before that. Saw her, met her, and she is a big contributor of positivity, man. Like she is. There's nothing negative. Like she don't deal with that shit. Like, she don't want to hear it. You know. But she, I got married. Best day of my life, and I was just kind of sitting around. I really didn't have much to do. And she's the one, but I've always had different, skills of metal fabrication. I built my house. And she kind of gave me the motivation to do something with that. And I've always liked the whole aspect of fire training. And I saw the lack of fire training. And the reason why is because a lack of funding for firefighters in departments to be able to obtain training buildings. I was like, well, I love welding and, you know, building shit. And I also love firefighting. So I kind of put 2 and 2 together and started Lonestar Tactical Buildings, and doing pretty awesome. Like it's kind of ramped up so fast that I hadn't had time to, you know, start a website or do, you know, anything else, you know, but things are great.
Man, that's brilliant.
I already talked to him about it.
And its concept. Because a lot of times, especially with us, we got rewarded on how many missions we did and how many fires y'all make. And as you tactically train, when you graduate the fire academy and you go to your firehouse, that's just another academy. Mm-hmm. That's the in-field academy.
Oh, that's the beginning of that
stage.
Yeah,
so it keeps going. So when you train yourself, like in the neighborhood, like the first time a firefighter ever comes to your house shouldn't be when it's on fire.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, you should have them over for dinner. And when they're like, hey, look, this is kind of what's around here in case this place catches on fire. I just want to thank you for what you do. We take care of our firefighters too, man. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's kind of one of the deals where, hell, y'all deal with the one thing that we don't want to. You're damn right we're going to make y'all happy. Yeah. So when you train in that reality and you kind of come down, you create an environment like, hey, man, how many fires they didn't have? Like there was only one fire this year, and they were on so fast, and the people, that kind of thing. You know, you reverse it.
They didn't get the reps.
Yeah, so there's not bragging about how, that kind of thing.
Right. And that's one thing that we do is like, the thing that's different from, you know, our company compared to the others is that everybody on my crew is with Lonestar Tactical. They're all firefighters. So we speak the same language, you know. We're not just engineers, you know, and I'm not knocking anybody else. I mean, they have some bad stuff out there, but ours is the most realistic, you know, because we know what, you know, what's. And
that's how it works, man. I mean, when you're paying it back, like everything you've learned, you create in that academy that teaches the other ones. It's not a bad thing ever.
Oh no,
it's like, hey man, the more we give back, and with our generation kind of rolling back around, you got the hierarchy that's still in the academy, it's still in the houses. I mean, the departments. It's
right. The one thing I wanted to do is that I saw how much these buildings cost, and looking at it, I'm like, man, there ain't no way this costs this much, you know. And that kind of bothered me. Is like the reason why we have this lack of training and lack of live fire training is because these buildings are freaking millions of dollars. They're shipping containers, man. You know? So I started putting pen to paper. I'm like, no, this ain't right. I mean, I'm passionate about being the best at your job, you know. And there's a lot of good guys, young guys that want to be the same way, but they just don't have the tools to build upon that. So that's one of the main reasons why we started doing it. It's like it's a win-win, you know. And these other companies are hating me right now, but it's, you know.
What does that tell you? You're doing the right thing.
Exactly. I mean,
right?
It was hard.
I mean, if they're all coming at you, that means you got something that they don't.
I just told them, I was like, stop screwing taxpayers over, stop screwing these guys over, man. Like, you can do very well.
Because you wind up spending that taxpayer money in repairs if you can spend it into training.
Right. That's what I tell these, like, we can build it for this. And they're like, what? No way. I'm like, man, yes, we can. That means you can take this part of it, because I actually give a shit about their budget and the guys that work there. You know, I want them to be good, because the citizens that live around them, it's a bad feeling whenever you have a fire department on your worst day, you know, that you don't have any confidence in. Like, if that doesn't keep you up at night, like it used to keep me up at night where I live. It's like, if I'm at the firehouse, man, if my house catches on fire, who's coming to save my family? You know, like, I've always told these guys, are you the person you want coming to your house when your house is on fire? And that's the easy answer. You know, it's either yes or no. And you don't have to say it. They don't have to be honest, but they know inside. But that's the main reason, man, is we started it up was just to provide that for. So I think every fire department in the United States should be able to afford something, you know, and that's what we want to do.
A way of saying, if every team guy was like me, where would the teams be?
Yeah.
Or maybe like if the Houston Texans just said, hey, look, we're going to give you a $20 million first responder training facility right there.
That'd be awesome, man. But it's going to sound shitty, but it's almost like they don't really care unless they need you, which, hey, man, that's how it should be. And I hear guys say that all the time, like, well, they only care whenever they call us. Well, no shit, that's why you're here. You know, that's your job, you know. But
here's the reverse. Like, how much do you want us to care when we show up?
Yeah, but you should. You know what I'm saying? I get what you're saying.
That's why you signed up.
Well, that's with their attitude. That's they're like, hey, look, we're giving you everything we got. We want to train more, and that's kind of the give and take on that.
It's also like, I get what you're saying. Like, it's you kind of get what you pay for too. Like,
training, not even paid, just training wise. Like, you don't even, just give us the facilities.
You know, the last time that I've trained in Houston, like at a, I couldn't tell you.
Don't say it out loud.
Couldn't tell you.
Scared about.
Well, they should be, because I mean it's a shit show up there right now. Man.
We should flip everything on its ass, right? We should have a draft for firefighters and cops, pay them what we pay our pro athletes and our teachers.
Oh
teachers,
yeah, right.
Yeah,
How
pay
about
them
that?
even more.
Dude,
make
what's
as
up?
much as our pro
Like when you
athletes.
see one of them out of the academy when they're walking around, you're like, oh,
Yeah,
right.
I mean, my mom, my sister, they're teachers, and I see the shit they got to go deal with. You know.
And we do it to ourselves. That's
always
the
thought-
craziest
yeah.
part
I
about it,
always
man.
thought that was
We're supposed
the
to police
most
ourselves up.
backwards shit.
I mean, they're the ones molding everybody to get to where they are.
You
to
can
be
either make it
successful.
extremely hard, or we can actually, with the way we work and Americans work, man, we can have everything we wanted.
So I'm gonna
Yeah.
pay you hundreds of millions of dollars to kick that. But I'm gonna pay my teachers and my first responders, the people that put their lives on lines and educate our children. I'm gonna pay you pennies.
You put a guard on the bank.
Nobody's gonna show up for a chess game.
We talked about the whole pay raise stuff earlier. Thinking about it, yeah, if you did pay a lot more, you're going to get better, applicants. You have more to pick from. Because right now,
if you do start paying, like let's just say hypothetically that it went that way, and you started paying firefighters, first responders, you motherfuckers better look like pro athletes.
that's exactly what I've been saying.
Yeah, that's why we have to look the way we do.
That's exactly what I've been saying.
Yeah.
You better look the part.
There's a caveat to that because Marines don't get paid anything, and you've never seen a fat Marine.
ever.
Never.
In uniform. Never. Even the gunnies that are 103 years old. I saw one of the colonels, he was 104. He could shave with the crease in that son of a bitch's pants. They're so squared away, right? I mean, that's a thing. That's a pride thing.
Well, the good thing is, man, I mean, good things are coming for Houston. It just takes time. That's one thing I would advise any young guy. Stay out of the negative, man. Because they can sit, they talk about politics. I can't do shit about politics. So why talk about something you can't change, man? I mean,
You can remember, and then
Yeah,
when
that's it.
And then when you're in a position of authority, and you have the ability to make change,
Yeah.
you
Make the change.
Yeah.
Remember.
Don't leave pissed off and talk smack because you obviously you don't know what you're talking about if you're not in that position.
Right.
That's the thing too. I
Right.
mean, all young guys go through that. Like, hey, man, Chief doesn't know. He's like, man, shut, dude.
you don't know, man. Yeah.
Isn't that right?
Yeah.
And I know Houston. We're Texans.
Yeah.
I mean, if we wanted to fix it right now, we would.
Yeah.
We just would.
We've
We've been through too much.
Yeah. Well, that's the scary thing, man, is like the fire department will always, HFD will always support HFD. Like, we are understaffed, undermanned. Harvey, this free shit we just went through, we got it done without any help from anybody else. There was guys working for 2 weeks straight, not going home, but people needed us.
That's why y'all get the respect
pride.
y'all do.
That's the pride that I have.
If you were overstaffed and there's too many of it, then no one would care.
It's also a curse too, because politicians know that we're going to go either way. We're not going to not help somebody, and they use that against us too, But it's like I said, good things are coming, man. It can only get better. So,
David, thanks, man, for
I
showing up
appreciate
today,
it, man.
sharing
Hope
your
I
story,
wouldn't
man.
have rambling along.
Oh, man,
That's
you're
what we do
good.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
ramble.
Do you have at least a Facebook page for the business?
Yeah, if you go, it's Lonestar Tactical Buildings, at Lonestar Tactical Buildings.
Perfect.
Lonestar.
I said, you get that website and all that going.
Thank you guys so much for listening to the episode of the show. Let us know what you think. If this episode helped you out in some way, or a firefighter that could just use some encouragement, this is an episode you should certainly share with a friend. Make sure you follow us on social media, teamneverquit.com/social. Make sure you subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. Thank you guys. See you next week.